Hello, welcome everyone to the Sigma webinar on live edit, how to unblock your team and unlock your potential with Sigma. We're going to wait just a few moments as attendees settle in. In the meantime, feel free to familiarize yourself with the GoToWebinar interface. There's actually a questions panel where throughout the presentation, feel free to post any questions as they come up, and we'll be able to circle back to them either live or within the Q&A. We'll just wait a couple more moments. It's going to be a very engaging webinar. We'll let everybody settle in first. All right, it seems like the number of attendees is leveling off. I'd like to thank everybody for joining today. Very excited for this webinar on live edit, new feature that we are launching. This is going to unblock your team and unlock your potential. So this webinar is going to be recorded. You'll receive an email afterwards with that recording. So if you miss any part of it, or if you want to share it within your organization, please feel free to. And throughout the presentation, again, there is a questions tab in the GoToWebinar panel that you can post any questions throughout. We can answer them via messaging backwards, or we can actually address them during the Q&A. So feel free to post anything there as we go. But we can begin with introductions for the session. My name is Zach Norton. I'm a technical product marketing manager at Sigma. I'll be your moderator for today. During this session, I'll be in that questions tab and helping out with the Q&A at the end. I'm joined by Stipo Jasovich. He's our Director of Product Management, and John Avrak, who is our Senior Director of Solution Architecture and Evangelism. So I'm going to hand it over to John, and he's going to kick off the webinar. Quick introduction about live edit.
All right, thank you, Zach, and welcome everyone to the webinar here on live edit. Very excited to be introducing this feature, and I thought the way we would start today's discussion is with a little bit of history around productivity, and then this is also a personal story as well. So I've been around the tech industry for quite a while now, and I have memories of when I was growing up as a kid. Going into my dad's office in Center City, Philadelphia, and he had an accounting practice there, and this was in the 80s. And when I would go in there, they would have typewriters there, and they would type up all the documents that they would send to clients. And one day I went in there and I saw this beast of a machine, which looks like a beast now to us, sitting on one of the admin's desks there, and they shortly had two after that. And what this is this was called a CPT 8000, and this was a very advanced machine at the time. And actually, if you use it today, you would recognize it as a word processor. And this had a monochrome screen, so it was two colors, and you could type and edit text in there. And you could do word processing. You could edit your documents and you could save them. It had giant floppy disks, which you can see in the picture there on the right, those two slots. You would put in these 8-inch floppy disks. They were really floppy. And you could save your files, and then later on you could load them back up. And you could save off templates. You could have standardized templates. And this really changed the way they did business at my dad's office. They were able to have standardized templates. They could share files between people using a advanced technology called SneakerNet, which is where they would take the floppy disk and walk it over to someone else's word processor, and they would put it in there. But it had all the aspects that you would recognize today with editing documents and sharing them around, although a little differently than how we do it today. And then also having an archive of these. So you could go back a year later or 2 years later and see what that memo was that you sent to one of your clients. And once they had these machines, it changed the way they wrote documents. Typewriters were no longer there. They really became obsolete pretty much overnight with the introduction of machines like this. And then a few years later, they got a personal computer there at their office, an IBM. It was I think it was an 088 or 286 processor in there. And it was also monochrome. It was green and black. And they had a few applications. And the one that really stuck out to me was Lotus 123. It was a spreadsheet. It was the first time I had seen a spreadsheet. And it made a lot of sense. It had rows and columns, and you could enter in text and put in numbers, and you could do formulas, like you could add up columns there. And prior to this, my dad's office in the accounting firm, they would all do this by hand. They had these really large pieces of paper with almost like graph paper, and they would take with very neat handwriting, they would write out things like general ledger. They would do projections and budgets, and they had calculators and they had pencils and erasers. And once they started using this the spreadsheet, they pretty much never went back to the paper and pencil. It was vastly superior. Now everything was archived, just like in the word processing I was talking about. And now they could also do things like projections. So if they wanted to do like what if analysis, they would, for business models, what if the profit grew by a certain percentage? They could plug a number into a cell and everything would get recalculated instantly. And they could archive these things and they could build on top of them over time. They can make edits. And pretty soon they were using this for general ledger, for budgeting, running their own payroll, and doing projections. It replaced paper and it really changed the way businesses work. So really two foundational technologies of word processing and then spreadsheets. So these are really huge productivity boons to business. And then many years later, after the internet kind of took hold and people were using email and using the web, along came Google Docs. We're all familiar with this now. And this is really the birth of online collaboration. And now it was possible to take that word processing experience of the CPT or the spreadsheet experience of Lotus, and you could do those things in a browser in a very collaborative way. So no longer were you saving it to a floppy disk and running it over to someone's desk and having different versions of the truth. Now anyone, anywhere on the planet that had internet access could all collaborate on the same document. So this took collaboration and productivity to a whole new level. More people could be included. If you remember the days of even like Microsoft Word and emailing a file to someone in review mode, it was very difficult to coordinate those. You'd have multiple versions of the document. You'd have to merge in changes. You'd have to ask people if they were done making their changes. Some people would lose their changes. It was very, very time consuming. It was still better than the old days of using a typewriter. But Google Docs really changed the way we do collaboration. And now we don't even think twice about how we do this for spreadsheets, for documents, and also for this presentation I'm showing you right now, which is in Google Slides. And I worked with Stevo and Zach to edit this thing collaboratively. But this is not what's happened in the world of analytics. And in many ways, analytics it's kind of been stuck in the 80s for a long time, which is we've been doing things the old way. We've been creating documents, which are like, they could be workbooks or whatever your analytics product calls it. Basically creating documents with all of your analytics in it, saving it off, and then having to coordinate with other people and having to worry about stepping on each other's work. So it's largely been a kind of a solo activity. You're really operating in a silo here. And it has all those kind of negative workflow properties associated with it. So the thing is, it doesn't have to be this way. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is we're introducing this feature called Live Edit, which is going to change the way that you use analytics. And I'm going to pass over to Stepo here to talk about what we're going to show you.
So in this demo, we'll give you an overview of what it's like to build analysis in Sigma, and we'll showcase the power of Live Edit. John, an analyst at a struggling retailer, needs to determine which brands they're going to keep or drop in order to make the company successful. He'll work with myself Stipo, a merchandising expert, to determine the best path forward. Take away, John.
Excellent. So in all of these webinars that we do, we love to show the product, let the feature speak for itself. Slides are great, but the product is where it's at. So here we are in Sigma, and what we're going to do to figure out which brands we're going to drop in this analysis is we are going to start with some data. This is retail sales data. It's sitting in our warehouse. In this case, it's sitting in Snowflake. So we've got about 4.5 million rows. Sigma is always a live query product. So when I click on that table, it's live querying Snowflake in this case, and showing me all of my transactions in our store here. And what we're trying to figure out is brands and which brands we should drop. So we're going to look at this from a few different aspects. And the first one is going to be around brand profitability based on the historic sales. So let's first take a look at our data. What we have here is each row is a transaction. It's someone buying some kind of product either in a store or online. And one of the things we have here is a department. So we've got like entertainment and music, arts and entertainment. Now for this brand analysis, we're just going to focus on photography. And what I want to look at is the profitability by brand. But I don't have profitability in my data. That's okay. Just like we did back in the 80s with spreadsheets. Some things, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So we're gonna create a new column, just like we did in Lotus here. And this is the familiarity that Sigma offers. It lets you work with a spreadsheet-like interface. So I can click on columns, or I can just type them in, and I can compute my profit over here. And then what I want to do is take our brands that we have over here, and I want to compute the profitability for each brand. So the way I can do that is I can group on the brand, and then I can sum up the profit for each brand. And we'll call this our brand profit, and we'll sort it. And really, just like that, in a few minutes, I'm able to get some insights quite quickly. I'm also realizing that I made a error in my calculation, but that's not a problem. So we'll just change this over here to the sales quantity. There we go, perfect. So I can get some insights very quickly and see like Panasonic and SanDisk are some of my top performing brands. But usually when I show people absolute numeric values like this, what they want to see is the percentage of total profit. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to add the grand total profit, and then we're going to divide this here and just get a percentage. Kind of just point and click here. And now what I have is a list of all the different percents of profit. And then we can color code these to kind of point out what the different insights look like right here. Okay, so very quickly, what I can see here are like Panasonic and SanDisk are on the top, and then I can see there are some other low performers down below. But this doesn't tell me the whole story. So I have some data from our Shopify website, which contains customer reviews. And what I want to do is kind of marry this data into my analysis to get a more like 360 type of view. So with Sigma, what I can do is I can take that Shopify data, I get this product reviews file right here, and I can upload this as a CSV file. So imagine you have Shopify, you went to the site, you just said, download all the review data, here it is. So what's happening now is we've got about 43,000 rows of Shopify data, and we're uploading it not to Sigma, but through Sigma, and it's landing back into our warehouse. So in this case, it's landing back into Snowflake. And the reason why this is significant is that this then lets me tie the Shopify data into the rest of my analysis, kind of join the two together. And if you think about the way you might do this in Excel, is you would use like a VLOOKUP. VLOOKUPs are really popular to basically pull data from one area to another. And since Sigma is designed to work a lot like a spreadsheet, we have a function called lookup, works pretty similar to VLOOKUP. And what it lets me do is I can take that CSV data I just uploaded and I can tie it to my retail table by the brand here, and then I can pull the review rating in. And since we have multiple reviews for each brand, I want to average all those there. So just like that, I'm able to upload my review data from Shopify, tie it into my analysis, and then look at that versus the profit information, which came from my retail sales. So I have two different sources going here. One which is very quantifiable, the profit. Another one which is a little more subjective. It's around the sentiment of my different customers. And we'll just color code this one as well. Okay, so now things are starting to shape up. I've got an analysis that shows profitability. I can see these top 3 brands, Panasonic, SanDisk, and Canon. Maybe I want to keep these. They're all up here in the green. But then down here, I've got the Samsung and Polaroid brands, and these have very high customer sentiment. So they haven't been terribly profitable, but customers really like them. And this is important when it comes to like deciding which brands I want to keep or drop. Maybe I don't want to drop things which are going to make customers unhappy here. So I've got this kind of theory in my head, but how do I get this into my analysis? This has always been one of the challenges with the analytics is taking information from your head and putting it into the analytics. So for this, we have something called input tables. So I'm going to create a new input table here, and I will take the brand information, paste it in here, and then that information that's in my head, which is which ones should I keep and which ones should I not keep, I can just type them in now. So I want to keep these first 3, and then I want to discontinue these other ones. But for Samsung and Polaroid, which have those high reviews, we're going to keep those there. And then what I want to do is that same VLOOKUP that I did before to the keep table. We'll tie it together by brand. We'll take our status column and we'll add it in. So the same kind of workflow. And now I've got a cross section of 3 different things here. I've got the profitability coming from my warehouse, the review data coming from the uploaded Shopify reviews, and then I had the information coming from my head. It's kind of my expertise or domain knowledge in this column here. So just really in, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or so, even with talking, I've been able to do a pretty powerful analysis. But the conversation doesn't stop here, and this is a demo about live edit. So what we're going to do is really make this collaborative. Okay. So we're going to save this document off, and now I'm going to share it with my good friend Stipo, who just also, in addition to being a product manager, he also he's a merchandising expert, which is incredible. So we're going to add him here as an editor, and then I want to tag him and say, I'm going to say, hey, Stipo, please take a look. Okay, so I've shared this document with him and I tagged him. I want to get him involved into my analysis here. So already I can see, there we go. So Stipo says he's reviewing. If I look in the top right, I can see his picture up there, just like you would see something like in Google Docs, for example. He's now in the document, and you can't tell this on the webinar here, but my hands are not on the keyboard right now. And you can see Stipo, his little chiclet here, he's adding this chart to this. So we're both working in the document at the same time right now. I'm going to add a text element just to put my brand analysis title in here. So as he's working on his part, I'm working on my part. We can even edit the same visualization at the same time. So I can change the formatting while he's working on this. And he's working on the chart, but he's also over here on the right. He's inside the table over here, the input table, and he's changing some of the text there. And we're both looking at the exact same document at the same time. So let's see what Stipo's ended up doing here. He's used his domain knowledge to kind of build on top of what I already did. So I said, hey, let's keep Panasonic, SanDisk, and Canon. And he said, well, maybe for SanDisk, let's discuss that during the meeting. So we're gonna review that with leadership. He added a notes column there. I started this table. He kept editing this one, both looking at the same version. And then for Polaroid, he thinks maybe these are a bit dated. So we're going to discuss these in the meeting. So really just in a few minutes, we've both been able to collaborate, pull data from our warehouse, the Shopify data, domain expertise from both Stipo and myself. And this workbook is ready to go. So we're ready for our meeting. And this is what we mean by live edit. It gives us the ability to both get in there at the same time and edit the document. We're both seeing the same source of truth. Great. And now what we're going to do is, now that you've seen how the feature works, we wanted to bring this home with an actual case study of how live edit has worked in the real world. And Stipo is going to talk to us about that.
So one customer I worked with to design live edit is a large international shoe and apparel retailer with thousands of employees. To answer questions like, should we drop the golden shoe? Teams of people would need to be involved to make the decision. And the way it would typically work is that one member would build an analysis, then share it with another. That individual would then add some comments, make some changes, and share it back. And they would repeat this process 10, 20, 50 times amongst that team. Before Sigma, this meant saving and sending files, not just in spreadsheets, but in even just modern analytics tools. So with 50 iterations, they had a bunch of challenges and needed to ask themselves questions like, which version is the source of truth? Were these last changes made on the latest draft? Where do I make my own changes? And do I need to merge any of this work together? How would I do that? So for them, this feature wasn't just about a time saver. It was a determiner in whether they can have analysis and time to make the right decisions. It was also a determiner in whether or not they'd have correct data when making decisions. And so ultimately, this was why they chose Sigma.
Excellent. Thank you, Stipo.
So now, the magic question, as with any feature, it is when is this available? So the good news here, and that I'm happy to share, is that live edit is already available for any new Sigma organizations as of the 1st of November. For existing customers, we'll be incrementally releasing over the next few months. And if you want faster access or access sooner, please reach out to your customer success manager, and we'll work with them to get you enabled.
Excellent, thank you. So we are scheduled for an hour, but I think we'll take a few questions here, and then we'll be able to wrap this up pretty early. So did see one question. Actually, Zach, maybe do you want to
Yeah, let me stack rank these. So I think this one's a nice one that's a little nuanced. The question is, can multiple people edit the same viz at the same time, or are they just allowed to add new vizzes to the same workbook?
Both. You can not only work in a workbook with another user, and as John and I showed, you can work on individual elements as well. So he can format visualization while I'm working on the actual data.
Okay, so hypothetically, both me and you could add new lookups to the same pivot table at the same time using live edit with our different assumptions.
Exactly.
Very cool. And just to tag on to that, somebody else also asked, does that change the way publish works?
No, publish is still the same. The main difference is that multiple people won't mean multiple drafts. You have one common draft, and everyone will always be able to see the same thing. But publishing is the same.
Okay. And I think this came up a few times. Can it be embedded?
That's an interesting question. So not at present, the behavior with embedding is still single player.
Okay. And without embedding, just as we were showing it, how many users can edit at the same time?
It's going to be the same as Google Docs, which is 20, though I really hope you don't have to manage that many people at the same time.
Yeah, I think 20 was the limit that the fire marshal decided upon, right? Let's see. Can you edit? Okay. Edit access. Can you limit that to the viz or table level, or is edit access at workbook level?
So edit access is just the workbook level. So the permissioning to the workbook itself, it remains consistent.
Okay, so restriction is the same, 20 people, and you can still edit the same visualization, especially with adding lookups and even adding additional CSV uploads.
All right. Yes, exactly. And should we also take on the input tables question here as well?
Yeah, because we kind of buried the lead on that. Let's go ahead. One thing is, how'd you do it? What was that?
Yeah, so we did drop in a little Easter egg here, so we appreciate people noticing that here. This is an upcoming feature called input tables, and I would say, stay tuned. Definitely, we're gonna have a webinar. We're gonna do a deep dive into this one, and I think Stipo may be back for an encore in that one as well. But this feature is not yet released, but it's pretty close, and you saw today here in action. We like to reward our viewers a little bit, a little sneak preview of what's coming down the road. So definitely, you definitely want to watch these webinars because we are going to drop some stuff in there from time to time.
Yeah, everybody's waiting for the other golden shoe to drop, which is input table. I think that's fair to say. But first one has dropped, which is live edit. So I think that's a wrap for questions today. Stipo, John, thanks so much for walking us through that new feature. For everybody that attended, you will receive an email afterwards with the recording you can share within your organization. And wait for that email, because also upcoming webinars for the next month will also be listed in there for other exciting new features on the horizon. But thank you again, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.